My name is Caroline Van Mantgum, and I will be presenting about the Tennessee Valley Authority coal ash spill. So the Tennessee Valley Authority Kingston's fossil plant was built in 1955, and for more than a decade after building it, it was the largest coal burning power plant in the world. It was built in Kingston, Tennessee, which at the time of the disaster had a population of a little over 5,500 people. It burns 14,000 tons of pulverized coal each day, which is the equivalent of 140 rail car loads. About 10% of the coal becomes coal ash that gets flushed out of the plant's furnaces. The areas surrounding the plant that were affected by the spill were mainly waterways like the Emory, Clinch, and Tennessee rivers. These areas in the early 1900s were heavily impacted by forestry and mining, and currently are being affected by chemical contamination in hydroelectric dams. These areas are important water sources surrounded by riparian zones and vertical exposed sandstone outcroppings that support diverse ecosystems. According to the Appalachian Voices, there are over 700 documented species of vascular plants in the area, 16 of which are endangered. One, which is Cumberland rosemary. There's also a diverse set of animals that rely on this area, such as the Black Mountain salamander and the northern long-eared bat. On December 22, 2008, at approximately 1 a.m., a failure of the northwest side of a dike used to contain coal ash occurred at the dewatering area of TVA's plant. Due to the dike failure, approximately 5.4 cubic yards of coal ash was released into the Swan Pond embayment and through 3 adjacent sloughs, eventually spilling into the main Emory River channel. The release extended approximately 300 acres outside of the fly ash dewatering and storage areas of the plant. The EPA first estimated that the spill would take 4 to 6 weeks to clean up. This was far from the truth. The TVA first contacted the help of Jacobs Engineering to begin the cleanup, and more than 900 people worked on the site between 2008 and 2015, operating a myriad of earth-moving equipment, such as bulldozers, to remove the ash from the river and ship it in rail cars to a lined landfill near Uniontown, Alabama. The cleanup was completed in 2015 and cost approximately $1.134 billion. Arsenic, cadmium, lead, vanadium, and chromium, as well as radioactive uranium and radon, are metals that pose the greatest health threat from coal ash. The chemicals in this coal ash are known as carcinogens, neurotoxicants, and endocrine disruptors, which we learned about in Module 8, Chapter 3. Recalling that chapter, carcinogens are agents that may produce cancer by themselves or in conjunction with another substance. Neurotoxicants are substances that cause adverse effect on the chemistry, structure, or function of the nervous system, and endocrine disruptors are chemicals that can interfere with the body's hormonal system and produce adverse developmental, reproductive, neurological, and immune effects in both humans and wildlife. Companies who need to store the wet ash often contain it within unlined ponds, which contaminate surface water and groundwater with high levels of arsenic and selenium. This storage method is what so horribly failed in the Tennessee Valley Authority coal ash spill and effectively contaminated the water surrounding the plant, including drinking water. We learned about ground and surface water contamination in Module 10, Chapter 3, Water Pollution. The streams surrounding the plant are home to over 65 species of fish, including 3 imperiled species, which the ash darter, sickle darter, and spotfin chub. Spotfin chubs, which are protected under the Endangered Species Act, for example, lay their eggs in crevices between rocks. The surrounding forests, known as riparian zones, are necessary to shade the water and prevent excess siltation from clouding the water and filling those crevices with sediments. The spotfin chubs have lost a lot of their historic range because of the loss of the riparian forest from mining, logging, and urban development. The Emory River system is one of the few refuges they have left. We learned about habitat loss in Module 7, Chapter 4, quote, Threats to Biodiversity, and how harmful it is to the survival of native species. Here is the Kingston fossil plant before and after the spill. As you can see, the area drastically changed, which really hurt the native ecosystem. Within the approximately 300 acres that the coal ash reached, it destroyed 12 homes. While no one died from the initial spill, of 900 workers, 36 have died of brain cancer, lung cancer, leukemia, and other diseases, and another 200 are sick or dying. These workers were not provided with the personal protective equipment necessary to prevent exposure to hazardous chemicals contained within the coal ash. More than 200 workers have sued Jacobs Engineering and the contractor hired for the cleanup, which is the contractor hired for the cleanup, for not providing proper safety for the workers and for telling workers that, quote, you can eat the ash and drink it and it won't hurt you. The United States produces more than 130 million tons of coal ash each year, kept in more than 1,100 sites across the country. Many of these sites have found to contaminate surrounding water with high levels of chemicals like arsenic and selenium. Nearly every major river in the southeast has at least one unlined leaking coal ash pit on its banks filled with wet coal ash. That proximity to toxic waste endangers rivers and lakes that people recreate and fish in. Coal ash ponds across the country also threaten the drinking water resources of millions of Americans, as the many toxins in coal ash leach out into nearby rivers, lakes, and groundwater. These pits have a high chance of spilling, just like at the Kingston plant. In response to the effects of the Tennessee Valley Authority coal ash spill and other increasingly common spills like it, in 2015, the EPA created the Coal Ash Disposal Rule, which establishes national criteria for existing and new coal and ash storage facilities. The rule requires any existing unlined coal combustion storage that is contaminating the water above the maximum level to stop receiving coal combustion residuals and either remodel or close. It also requires the closure of any plants that cannot meet the criteria for location restrictions or structural integrity. Unfortunately, a lot of progress made by this act was rolled back by the Trump administration, but a coalition of environmental groups, including Earth Justice and the Sierra Club, challenged the weakening as well as the original weakness of the coal ash rule in a petition to the U.S. Court of Appeals, saying the move was a, quote, direct threat to public health and safety. In this defense, the EPA claimed it could save $28 million to $31 million in annual regulatory expenses, but that fails to consider the other costs of the weakening of this rule, such as costly cleanups, chronic contamination of land and water supplies, or the burdens that these disasters place on the health of citizens. In the end, the court's decision sided with the public interest groups by concluding that the original rule failed to adequately protect against pollution from unlined and inadequately lined ash pits. The court ordered the EPA to revise the rule to properly address the health and environmental threats from these dump sites. Thank you so much for watching my presentation. Here are all the sources I used to research this. Feel free to take a look at them. They're super informative. Thank you so much for watching.